Let's look at some subtraction of signed numbers. Let's try one first that I think we would all know the answer to. We could figure it out. If we try 2 minus 5. So if you have 2 and you try to take away 5, you're going to go in the hole. You don't have enough. And I think we would get -3. We just don't have enough. If we tried it on the number line, we would start at 2. If you're taking away a positive number, you're making it get smaller. If you're making it get smaller, you're going to the left. So we're going to go to the left 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we did land at -3. If you recall, when we looked at adding sign numbers, there was one addition problem that also moved to the left. Remember, if we added a negative, we moved to the left. Let's look at this problem. 2 plus a -5. And if we graph it, we would start at 2. And if we add a negative, it's getting smaller. If it's getting smaller, we're going to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we also land at -3. So if we subtract a positive, or if we add a negative, we are getting the same result. Let's look at another problem. So we have -1 minus 3. So we will start at -1. And if we subtract a +3, we're making it get smaller. If we get smaller, we're going to the left. 1, 2, 3. So we land at -4. Now let's look at an addition problem. -1 plus a -3. So we would start at -1. If we add a negative, we're making it get smaller. If you get smaller, you're going to the left. 1, 2, 3. So we land at -4. Notice these problems give us the same result, whether we subtract a positive or add a negative. There's an advantage to thinking of the addition mode because then we have very clear rules. We have like signs or we have different signs. Let's look at how we might rewrite the subtraction form into the addition form without the extra notation. So if we have 2 minus 5, if we take the sign that we're used to seeing as subtract, and if we move it over and take it as the sign of the next piece, so all I have done is put in some space. I've moved the sign over. Now I really am in addition mode. I can think like signs are different without writing the plus and negative. This would be different signs. Different signs you subtract, sign of the larger. Let's try the other problem. So if we look at -1 minus 3, and we'd like to change it into an addition mode, we can take our sign that we're used to seeing as subtract and make it that sign of the second piece. So we would have -1. We're just going to add some space, scoot the sign over. And now we think signs. So we're thinking here in addition mode, this would be like signs. Like signs add and keep the sign. Let's look at one that is a little bit tricky. We're used to subtracting positives, but this one has us subtracting negative. We have 5 and we try to take away a -2. This one will actually make it get bigger. If we subtract a positive, it gets smaller. If we subtract a negative, it gets bigger. It's like canceling a debt. You don't want to get too bogged down worrying about that or trying to do it on the number line. But it's fairly simple to just go ahead and clean it up like we were doing a minute ago. So we'll take this sign over to the next piece. We'll put some space. Now, let's clean up this part. And minus a negative or opposite of a negative, remember that gives us a positive. And we can bring our first one down. And now work with what you have. Don't look back. We have two positives. They're like signs. Add and keep the sign. Let's look at one more of this type of problem. And we are going to clean this up. So we want to take this subtract over. So let's make some space. And we'll move it over here. Now we'll clean up. Minus a negative or opposite of a negative gives us a positive 7. Bring your first one down. Now just work with what you have. You have different signs. Different signs subtract. Sign of the larger, so sign from the 7. Don't look back. Don't worry that you had so many negatives. How could it be positive? Just work with what you have. Let's look at a few problems. For our first one, negative 4 minus 5. Let's take this subtract sign over and make it the sign of the 5. So we just put some space. Now we have like signs. Like signs add, keep the sign. Let's try the next one. 3 minus 10. We'll take this sign we're used to as subtract. We'll take it over as the sign of the 10. We're going to put some space. Now we have different signs, a positive and a negative. Different signs subtract. Sign of the larger absolute value. So sign from the 10. Let's look at the third one. Negative 2 minus a negative 1. We'll take this over. So we're going to make some space. We're going to clean this up. Opposite of a negative 1 makes a positive 1. Bring the first piece down. We have different signs. Different signs subtract. Sign of the larger, so sign from the 2. And one more. 2 minus a negative 3. We'll take our subtract sign over. Make it the sign of the next piece. So we're going to make some space. And then we'll clean up. Opposite of a negative gives us a plus. Bring your first one down. Now you have like signs, both positive. Add and keep it positive. So this gives us a way that we can transform problems we're used to seeing as subtract into an addition mode, and then we can use our nice sign rules. With like signs we add and keep the sign, or different signs we subtract, sign of the larger. Let's look at a longer problem. And we should just go across left to right. Remember, subtraction is not associative, so we're not allowed just to switch the order. So we'll go across. And we'll clean up. We'll take this minus over with our next piece. That's going to give us a plus 3. So we have different signs. Different signs will subtract sign of the larger. Bring down the next one. So we have a positive 2 and a positive 8. Like signs will add and keep the sign. So we're going to get a 10. Bring down the next one. You can go ahead and take the sign over with the 2. So that would be a negative 2. So we have different signs. Subtract, sign of the larger. So positive. Bring down the next one. And here we have different signs. Different signs subtract, sign of the larger.